Welcome to the Hired Not Fired podcast, brought to you by TheRealMe, the soft skills first talent solution that helps employers hire entry-level employees with better developed soft skills, such as communication, problem solving, or emotional intelligence. Join us as we sit down with hiring managers, talent leaders, and others and get insider tips to help Gen Z stand out and get hired. Let's dive in. Hey there, welcome to Hired Not Fired. I am excited to introduce my guest this week. I have DJ Lee from Bentley University. DJ is Senior Assistant Director at Bentley University's Multicultural Center, where he works closely with students of color and their allies while leading initiatives in student and employee engagement, DEI, and leadership development. He's passionate about emotional intelligence, workplace culture, and helping students show up authentically and confidently as they prepare to enter the workforce. Welcome, DJ.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I am too. Now, one of the reasons that I was really happy to get you on the show is because of your expertise in some of the soft skills that we hear from talent acquisition leaders saying they really want to see in the new hires. And so for today, I thought we could dig into emotional intelligence. Does that sound good to you?
No, that sounds fantastic to me.
Wonderful. I also love your experience working with students on campus, and you really have an inside view into some of the issues that they're dealing with as they search for internships and when they graduate, searching for jobs. So let's start with, what do employers mean when they say they're looking for candidates with high emotional intelligence? What are they really talking about, especially when we're talking about new grads?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when employers say they want emotional intelligence, they're really talking about like three particular things. They're talking about self-awareness, they're talking about communication, and they're talking about adaptability. For early career talent, it's not about having everything figured out because the employer knows you're not going to have everything figured out. You're a new grad. You don't have that much experience underneath your belt except your internship. So they really want you to be able to reflect. They want to see that you can take feedback without shutting down, and they really want to know that you can navigate relationships in the workplace. And employers want people who can learn in real time, they can manage their emotions professionally, and ultimately they just want you to contribute positively to their team dynamic in the workplace.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And in your work with students, where do you most often see emotional intelligence break down in professional and pre-professional settings? Because of course it's different when you're so acting socially among your friends.
Yeah, I think the biggest breakdowns that I see amongst students that they definitely struggle with defensiveness. And what I mean by that is students sometimes really don't know how to take feedback and they take it as a personal attack. They take it as a personal failure instead of taking it as information to help them prepare forward for themselves.
Mm.
And they really are trying to avoid difficult conversations because they're afraid of being perceived negatively. And I also see a lot of misreading of tone. I think this is probably the biggest thing that I see with my students. And this is a really big thing with tone, with text messages, Slack messages, emails. They also fear about asking clarifying questions, which can really lead to unnecessary stress and additional mistakes. And they just need to not be afraid to have these tough conversations because it's only going to make them better in the workplace.
Yeah, you highlighted some really important aspects there. What is some of the advice or tips that you give to students on getting better at reading tone? I know that older adults also have difficulty sometimes reading the tone of an email. What do you have to tell them to help with this?
Yeah, so what I usually tell my students pretty much is you just need to surround yourself with all different type of people, not just the people you automatically get along with. You should interact with people that have a different personality than you, have a different background than you, communicate different than you. And those are like the biggest three things that I tell my students. And a lot of them are just like, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to make myself uncomfortable? And sometimes you really just have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable because that's where the growth really comes in.
Yeah.
And I tell my students all the time. And then when they eventually do that, they come back to me. They're like, I get it now. And I'm just like, I'm so glad you get it because that's only going to make you better in the long run.
Wow, I love that. Getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Yes. And I love that idea. So, by surrounding yourself with more diverse people and personality types and communication styles, I guess through exposure, they're getting better at reading tone, right? It doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily have to be taken this way.
Hmm.
Another thing you mentioned was getting feedback, not knowing how to take feedback, taking it too
Hmm.
personal. And we know that coachability is one of the most in demand soft skills that companies are looking for in their employees and new
Hmm.
hires, especially early career, right?
Hmm.
What tips can you give to students about getting better at accepting feedback, not taking it personally?
Oh, this is a really great question. And for me, what I tell students is, once again, it is about tone and it is about communication style. And one thing that I really learned at my last job that really helped me be a better manager for my students at this current job is that you can't manage everybody the same way. And that was really profound to me. And I don't know why that had like an epiphany moment, but you really have to get to know the person a little bit personally first before developing them professionally and being able to know how to communicate with them, how to manage them, because you can't just use one template for everybody. And so I really do like having coffee chats or just having time to just sit down with them. What do they want to get out of this experience? What are their future goals? What do they want to do for their job? And use that as leverage to coach them moving forward. Students tell me that they appreciate me going out of my way to really get to know them on a personal level before I develop them for the workplace after they graduate. So,
Mhm. Well, that's some wisdom there for employers and talent acquisition leaders who might be listening.
absolutely.
So, how does emotional intelligence show up differently for students who are navigating spaces where they may not feel at home right away?
Yeah, for students who don't feel immediately at home, and this is often shown through students of color, first generation students, or those in marginalized backgrounds. Emotional intelligence often includes heightened awareness of power, tone, and safety. They're constantly reading the room. They're possibly code switching. They're deciding when it's safe to speak up. And that could be really tasking on them, and it could be a lot of emotional labor. And I think it's important for not only employers, but also supervisors to recognize that EQ isn't just an individual skill, it's also shaped by the environment people are asked to navigate in as well.
That's leading into psychological safety, right? I
Yeah,
think that's what we're
absolutely.
talking about. That's another topic that I would really love to dig into. So maybe you'll come back for another episode
Yeah,
and we can
absolutely.
talk more about that because it's becoming obvious that it's so important to success in the workplace, having an environment with psychological safety. And as you point out, it's especially important for people who are in a new environment that they're not quite comfortable with.
Hmm.
Um, What's one emotionally intelligent behavior that makes someone easier to work with almost from the get go?
Oh, I love this question. So the first thing that definitely comes to my mind is proactive communication. And what I mean by proactive communication, I'm meaning like someone who gives a heads up when they're confused, if they're running behind, if they're unsure about expectations. This builds trust immediately. It shows that you have self-awareness, accountability, and you respect others that you're working with and you respect their time. And those qualities make collaboration so much smoother and makes your life so much easier in the workplace. Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Now, if you could correct one misconception students have about emotional intelligence, what would it be?
Misconception. A misconception that students probably have about emotional intelligence is that like they feel like they have to be like an open book or they have to like show their emotions, which is not really the case. Like you don't have to tell your sob story. You don't have to bleed out your whole experience that you've gone through up into this point of getting this job. Like that's not emotional intelligence. And I think a lot of people like misperceive that. And so I think a lot of times you just have to open that dialogue and have that conversation with students on what emotional intelligence is, because when they think they hear the word emotional first and they don't hear the word intelligence. They hear the emotional first and then they get rid of the second word.
Yeah, I love hearing you say that because especially with, they're the social media generation, right? And
Mhm.
the idea of oversharing has become a way of life to them.
Yes.
And, maybe the workplace isn't the best place to overshare.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's such a great point. And I was just having a conversation with someone the other day where they thought emotional intelligence involved repressing emotions. It's like, no, 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 no. Repressing emotions is never a good thing.
No.
The key word with emotional intelligence is managing emotions, right? Be
Absolutely.
aware of them,
Mhm.
acknowledge them, but keep them, but manage them effectively so they don't derail your work. So
Mhm.
I love hearing that. And I think you gave a lot of helpful advice on how to improve emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
especially for getting ready for the workplace.
Yeah.
So thank you, DJ. And we're going to have you back for another episode, and we're going to dig more into psychological safety.
Sounds great.